You're listening to the Final Say Radio Show, a Rappaport Media production, with your host Brett Rappaport and co-host John Rappaport.
I want to introduce to the Final Say Radio program for the first time our guest, Jamiel Shaw. And first, welcome to the Final Say, Jamiel.
Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
Now, I have to say, you know, we're normally much more excited to have guests come on the show than we are to have you come on the show, and I say that for the obvious reasons. First, on behalf of ourselves, our fans, and quite frankly, all fathers, all mothers, all civilized American citizens, we offer our sincere condolences for the loss of your son and the tragedy that has befallen your family, because I'm sure even though a few years have passed, you know, there can't be a sunrise or a sunset where this doesn't, you know, just fill everything on your mind. And I want to also thank you for coming on the show today, sharing your story, and as a father, for having the tenacity to discern your own family's suffering into a cause to prevent the suffering. I have a 17-year-old son right now myself, and, you know, I look at someone like you and I see you're fighting to save the lives of somebody else's child who you don't even know, and that's extraordinarily commendable.
Yeah, thank you. I always tell people that one thing I know 100% sure about what I'm doing is I can't help my son. So that, you know, I'm not getting nothing out of it, that's for sure, personally, you know. But I have a 16-year-old son, so hey, you know, the work never stops. Now it's just worse now because now I done had a taste of it, and I'm not trying to do that again. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. So first, in the roughly 15 minutes we'll have here, give our audience a very brief summary of the case and your and you know, essentially the battle that you're fighting here under Jamiel's. You say that right? Go Jamiels Law. Go, which is
right. Yeah.
Twitter's, which is your Twitter handle. But please give us the background.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everyone knows what happened, but the person who murdered my son, he's on death row now and up in San Quentin. So, you know, considering we got the ultimate prize, if it's a prize, you know, at all, of what happened, you know, we got all we can get out of it was the death penalty. Now, if they enforce it, you know, we're in California, so that's going to be hard. But just so I do know that we did all we can do, that's all we can do. You know, on that part, you know, on the other part, you know, we have two laws right now. We have one, a federal law that's called the Jamiel Shaw Memorial Act, and that allows the FBI to gain statistics on illegal alien crimes and report back to the public. Basically, give us a report on the crimes they're committing, who's doing the crimes, which country. You know, let us know what's going on so we can prepare and save ourselves. You know, the life you save may be your own. And then we have a local law that's called Jamiels Law, and that one there, it says that if you're a legal alien and you're in a gang, you got to be deported just for that. You know, you're not allowed to come to this country under the disguise of I'm just coming for work, and then get here, join criminal gangs, and then flourish because you're illegal, and then kill people and still be able to be released back. You know, this guy was released back into custody 3 times. He had 3 gun charges, illegally in the country with 3 gun charges, and that won't even get you deported. What can? You know, he's murdered my son, so now, well, when he gets out, he'll get deported, but, you know, that'll be in a coffin, hopefully, but I'm sure they're going to wait till I'm dead. Then they'll try to petition the court to let him out because they know as long as I'm alive, he's not getting out. But I have a 16-year-old son.
So first, who sponsored the federal law?
House Representative Walter Jones from North Carolina. Might be South Carolina, but I think it's North Carolina. And, yeah, this is like his 5th time. So you can imagine every 2 years for Congress, he's introduced it 5 times. It used to be called the Illegal Alien Crime Reporting Act, but they changed it to the Jamiel Shaw Memorial Act. And, yeah, he's trying. He's doing his part. He's putting it out there. We can't even get a hearing. You know, these are the House Republicans. You know, they're in the way, too. I hate to say it, that the same people that we need are our enemies. You know, the enemy is our enemy. You know, I mean, we depend on the House. They said if you get us in there and you vote us, the House and the Senate, this is what we're going to do, and they haven't done nothing. The Obama and the Democrats might have just won that last election because they're doing everything they want to do, and the Republicans are caving, and we depended on it. You know, we depended on that. And then to see them just say, what the heck, and, you know, it's wrong because we're trying.
You just captured the emotion of so many Republicans that I know, and quite frankly, even ourselves, who feel like if you want to talk about smaller government, more power back to the states' rights. I mean, just so you know, because I'm not sure if you've ever listened to our show before, but Brett and I are big fans of limited government, constitutional, conservative types that believe that one of the big problems that is with a huge central federal government is that the more you take power away from local, when people are facing problems, whatever those issues are, it's very difficult to solve any local problem, let alone a federal. But as just one man, when you're fighting the system, and the system is a federal government, you virtually have almost no chance of influencing it, where at least if you can deal with things in a county, a state level, you have more power. That being said, so many of these folks, that's what they're supposed to stand for, but they don't. So I want to touch on this from a slightly political perspective, since you raised that up. I see your family's tragedy as a convergence of potentially two things. One is, personally, in my own professional life, and I'm 50, almost 51, I have been so impressed by the improvements just in the last 20 years in race relationships, particularly in the business communities that I'm in, you know, that I think it's something to be celebrated. It doesn't mean there's not problems. There'll be problems 2,000 years from now. Xenophobia is human nature. But with all that being said, I feel like two things converged on you potentially. One is I see immigration as a vote buying scheme, less about Americans and the law and more about buying votes for one party. And at the same time, we've just gone through this whole Black Lives Matter, and I'm from a perspective of American Lives Matter. And so I wanted to get your take on that issue, and have any of the folks who have been so big on the Black Lives Matter, have any of those folks actually been reaching out to your family, or do you not meet the proper story criteria?
Oh, yeah, my son missed out. If it was a lottery ticket, he would have lost because he didn't get the lottery, which is getting killed by somebody white or the police. I mean, you need to have what we call the trifecta around here. You're already dead, and then you get killed by a white person, and he's the police. Oh, man, that's like the lottery. I mean, that's all they do. I mean, black people are shot dead by black people all over this neighborhood. Latinos are doing it. Nobody cares unless it's the police or the white people, you know. And they say Black Lives Matter. It only matters if you're liberal and you're black and you're killed by the police. But when it comes to Black Lives Matters, no, none of those people, because I don't fit in the category. Cause I'm a pissed off dad. You know, they want someone that's going to kumbaya and hold hands and say, oh, well, it's going to be okay. Jesus is going to work it out. I'm like, I'm pissed off. You know, I want something done about this. I reached out to blacks. They were talking about, oh, hands up, don't shoot. And I always tell people, in court, the coroner, the head of the coroner, was in the court, and he testified that when he shot my son in the stomach, my son was laying on the ground with his hands up, trying to, he couldn't do too much of a bullet, but he had his hands up. He shot him through his hand, ripped off his fingers, and into his head. And, and I'm like saying, what about him? But they don't care because, he wasn't killed by the white man, so there's no money in that. See, getting killed by the white person or the police, that has value to the race hustlers. You can make money off of that. There's money to be gained off of white people killing blacks, and power and success, so to speak. But when you're killed by blacks or Latinos, there's no value in that. So they make black people think that it's almost like the way of life. It's, you're supposed to get killed by blacks and Latinos, so, don't be surprised if it happens. But a white person, that's not supposed to happen. If somebody's going to kill our people, we're going to do it. So I'm not the only one. There's thousands of people that I know of, not personally, but I know a lot of them, that kids were murdered, and they haven't even got on the newspaper, and they see me as, help me. Everybody calls me, and they think I can do something, and I'm struggling, and I'm trying to get people to believe in being conservative and be more Republican, and they'll help us out. And then when this happens, it's like, man, they make it seem like, see, look at that. That's why they can't get into the black communities, is because Democrats deliver. You want free SHIT, so to speak? You're going to get it. They deliver it. Republicans, you vote for me, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that, and then you do it and you put faith in them, and look what happens. They don't do nothing.
Well, that's exactly why I brought this up from what I would refer to as a vote-buying scheme. I mean, I don't think fundamentally that the average Democratic congressman or senator wakes up in the morning and saying, how can I wreck the lives of black people in particular, but I look at politically, you could put all the emotion aside, and as a businessman, which is what I am, I look at most of these cities that have been what I would call closed experiments, meaning they're almost entirely democratically run for 50 or more years, places like Detroit or Chicago, and when you see the experiment is failing, at some point you have to say, throwing more money at it, it's not going to get the job done.
No.
And that's why I brought up your tragedy to me. It bothers me so much. I read an article, and I really like the first law you brought up, the one for statistics, because I remember just a few years ago, I was sitting on the porch before I moved back from North Carolina. I was sitting on the porch one morning reading the paper, and I read about somebody who lost their life from a drunk driver that night. Always tragic. And then you read he was hit by an illegal alien. And this was right after there was some big, I forget what it was, but something in the news about, buying votes from illegal aliens. And you're just thinking, how disgusting this is. And I tried digging into stats. And first off, I remember seeing that it was one of like 14 people in North Carolina over, I forget exactly, but let's say it was 18 months, or a relatively short period of time, killed by illegal alien drunk drivers. And I thought to myself, those are 14 Americans who were murdered by people who shouldn't have even been in the country. So you turn tragedy into to me, political calamity. And when I tried to do research on the stats, I could find almost nothing. Now, that means that they don't want you to know. And I think that's what you're trying to fight for, this law. They don't want you to know who's preying on us.
Right. They keep it. They want it because they know that will cause people to do something. See, stuff like that motivates you. See, they don't want motivation. They want to give you free money and stuff to pacify you, so you won't do nothing. Because they know the grieving process basically is a pacifying kind of feeling. Motivation is it's all about revenge. That's what motivates me, because I see what I'm doing as revenge. I don't want to kill nobody or go out there and hunt down people. So this is my revenge by making their lives as miserable as I can, as I can. And they don't want that. So don't tell nobody what's going on. You can't even say illegal alien. Everybody's whispering when they bring up illegals, because everybody thinks it's some kind of, they're going to get in trouble if they speak up. That's the problem. You're not going to get in trouble.
Jamiel, I've never heard this word used before, so let's co-coin it together in case it's not been used. But I see what you're doing as sort of prevenge, right? It's a combination of preventing somebody else from suffering the same tragedy. And, I don't buy all the softy stuff. There's a part of me that still believes in, a horse, a rope, and a tree, right? There are some people who, I'm sorry, but you put a gun to the head of a child with his hands up in front, and you fire that gun. I don't want to. There's no word you could say that justify. I don't care about his background. I don't care about anything. That person has entered the realm of pure evil. And with that, I think what you're trying to do is say, hey, there are politicians and people who they may not have pulled the trigger, but they may not have joined a gang. They may not have a tattoo, or they may not target somebody by the color of the clothes they wear in L.A. But they're culpable. And with that, you're not a victim of circumstance. You and your entire family and your son in particular were essentially an acceptable collateral damage statistic in the world of polarized politics. Is that a fair analysis?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's right on the head. That's how we see it because, it was real collateral damage. It's like, well, Mr. Shaw, you got to take one for the team. It's just a bigger picture. We got to bring down the white man, and this is our way of rallying with the Latinos, and we're going to come together and take down the white man. That's how they believe it. See, but what they leave out is that Latinos believe that black people benefited from the so-called white men taking their land. That's why they come into our community and just took everything because they believe we benefited from the theft, And so like you say, yes, it's like a prevent because I'm doing preventive maintenance. I want people to wake up and say, just because my son is dead, that doesn't mean, look at all the people who have been murdered since then. So you never know. The Grim Reaper is very resourceful. You can't hide from him. My son was on his own street. You know what I mean? The guy that was with me at the hearing, his son was at work. So can't hide from it. You have to attack it. Whatever way you have to do, you have to be on the offense. We have to put evil on the defense, and then we can stop them, and that means speaking up. Just not saying illegal immigrant is a big deal. Just saying illegal alien, that's a way to fight back. People don't understand the power of that word because they hate that word. So when you use it and you're justified in using it, that's power. That's power, and we have to take the power from them.
That's extremely well said. And, you can apply this to so many circumstances. We spend a lot of time on this show discussing terrorism. To me, terrorism isn't just like a gang, another gangbanger doing a quote-unquote random violent act. These are people who are ideologically associated with evil, and good can't win against evil unless it's willing to identify evil by its name and work together to fight that. And you can apply that same thing. I don't care whether we're talking about Iran, whether we're talking about gangs in L.A. I don't care, where you go in history or in the future. Evil can only be defeated when good men, irrespective of age, color, location, financial status, where we come together to say, we're not standing for this. Because the one thing we all have in common is, we love our kids, and we want our kids to grow up in a better world than we grew up in. And I feel like we're kind of heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you're right. You're a very intelligent guy. I like the way you say it because you're saying it just the way it should be said. Everyone says it their own way, but you're being effective because that's the whole thing is we aren't designed to die before our kids. That's why I'm struggling with this so much because my son had my name. So I'm hearing Jamiel Shaw, the cemetery, I'm seeing my name. Jamiel Shaw is dead, and basically I died when he died because the whole cycle has been disrupted. So I'm thinking I should be dead any day now because he's gone already. So I have to work at it, and people have to understand that you don't have time. Look at me. I had no idea one day all the hard work we did that the only way I'm gonna see my son is in the cemetery, or I got to go to heaven. You know what I mean? And there's some people. Yeah,
and I commend you for what you
have to attack.
Right, and I commend you, and also Jamiel's mother, I understand, she's still in active military, correct?
Yeah, Sergeant, and she's at Fort Hood right now. She was in Iraq when my son was murdered. She called me from Iraq to ask me. They're telling me Jazz is dead, and I'm like, man, I want to say no, that's not true. I had to say yeah. Now she's in Iraq. Yeah, it's like wait a minute, I'm in Iraq risking my life. And I'm getting a phone call that my son's life didn't mean nothing. He laying in the street like a dog, dead with the bullets with his brains. Literally, brains was in the street. He blew his head up. Literally, I saw it. I never seen it before. That's not design. That's not fair to me. Why'd I have to see that? What do we do? Yeah, what do we do? Why? What do we do? That's how I feel. Why are we so special that, legal aliens can run around and kill our kids and then nobody does nothing just because you want to save the illegals or you want cheap labor or you want the votes, so you ignore Americans? That's our family. These are people who were walking, they were alive. They deserve everything the legal aliens are trying to get. He deserved it. He put in all the work.
And first off, part of the problem we have here is that these Americans are paying the price. And even if you look at it from a labor perspective, the number one victim of immigration nonviolence, the number one just circumstantial victim right now are Black Americans, especially black men, because the unemployment rates are through the roof, and so importing cheap labor. And I got to tell you, there's a part of me that, for the average person coming across the border illegally, why I hold them in contempt from a legal perspective, I understand why they're trying to run away from their countries. Of course, we're now separating from the gangbangers. The problem is that if we're not a nation of borders and we're not a nation of laws, we're simply not a nation. And with that in mind, because I know we need to wrap up, let's take a leap of faith here and say you probably heard this term before, but an elevator pitch, right? So you have an opportunity, you're stuck in the elevator, you got about 10 floors to ride with President Obama, and you can make one simple, clear elevator pitch to him. What would you say?
I would ask him, what would he do? What would he do if someone did someone in his family like that? I mean, right to the point. What would you do? And I'm sure he wouldn't do what he's doing now. You know, he loves his family just like I love mine. So it's not, ask yourself, President, what would you do? What would you expect from the government if a legal alien or anybody murdered one of your daughters?
Very, very powerful. And, it's funny because while I probably disagree with about 95 to 98% of the president's politics, whenever anybody asks me to say something nice about the president, the first thing I always say is, seems like a really good dad. Seems to really love his daughters. And I believe that's true, and I think you handled that question very well. So first, I want to give you a quick opportunity to let people know where they could find more information about the law and how they can help you turn your son's tragedy into something positive, or at least preventative future.
We have a website, JamielsLaw.com. You can go there and find out all the information that's going on. If you want to donate, we have a foundation that we try to raise money and do things during the year. And, you can go, you can get all the information there too, Jamiels Law. And, the law, Washington, D.C. You can pretty much find anything you need, JamielsLaw.com.
And Jamiel is spelled Jamiel, just for clarification. We don't want them going to the wrong place.
Right, with an S on it too. JamielsLaw. Jamiels Law.
Jamiels Law. Yep. Okay. Well, and that people could easily confuse that with Jamiel Shaw, but listen, Jamiel, again.
Yeah, they do that all the time. People say, "Hey, you spelled your name wrong." I was like, "No."
Just you know what? May you get to spell it a million more times. I wish you the best. I know this is also part of the healing process, and while you'll never bring your son back, I know you go to sleep at night knowing that your efforts will save the lives of others. And again, that could just easily be between Brett and I. We have three teenage boys, 2 teenage girls, and a toddler. So whenever we see somebody turning tragedy into something important, we greatly appreciate it. So with that, I want to wish you a terrific weekend. Thank you so much for spending time with us in the Final Say, and we'll keep saying our prayers for you, and we'll keep fighting the good fight, and however we can, giving voice to such tragedy. Thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Keep up the good work.
All right.